really going to be committed to this journey, because marriage it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so if you know anything about running, you know that a great marathon runner practices pace. So you play like you practice. And a lot of people in marriage are not playing right because they're not practicing right. A wise man once said to me one time, on the wedding day, most men think that that's the finish line. But women on the wedding day, that's the starting line. So men think on the wedding day, I did it. The work is done. Women think the work can finally begin.
Let me ask this question. What do you believe some of the ingredients is and some of the components that are important to have a healthy marriage in 2025?
In 2025.
Welcome, one and all. Listen, we're back again for Change Your Life podcast. I just want to thank God for everyone who's tuning in. I want you to do me a favor, please. I want you to, firstly, I want you to share this podcast with anybody who you think will be uplifted and blessed by it. But I also want you to subscribe. There are those that are watching but haven't subscribed to the channel. But I'm encouraging you to subscribe so you can get regular updates and connect with what we're doing. Services every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. and it'll keep blessing you. Listen, this month I'm so excited because we're dealing with relationship and we're looking into various aspects of it. I believe that relationship is an essential part and an important part of our life, and not only that, of our development. And so we're going to look at various aspects of it. And joining me today is a very special guest who has come all the way from Baltimore, Maryland. He is a great man of God, Pastor Josh Bair. Welcome to Change Your Life podcast. And how is it getting down?
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. I was supposed to be here 30 minutes ago, but because of the snow, we couldn't get here as fast. So I made it.
You're here.
And I'm excited to be here.
And I'm so excited. You're in terms of what you do and who you are is exceptional. You have two fathers, one natural father who is a bishop, and one bishop, which is your father-in-law, and we met at your father-in-law's first. I was preaching for him in Mount Olive, First Mount Olive Baptist, and then went over to your father's at your invitation. Had to go twice, I believe.
Yes, sir.
And had a great time. So you've got that heritage.
Yeah.
And you also you run personal development as well.
Yeah.
How is that?
So, I call it a theological tension, a philosophical tension, a relational tension. What does it mean to live between two great men? And a lot of people think that because your father is a pastor and your father is a bishop and they're great, that it comes with a lot of access. But the reality is, for me, is that it comes with a lot of pressure. And so I've had to learn how to navigate the pressure of being a pastor's kid and then marrying a pastor's kids, marrying into another ministry family, and so
mega church,
big church,
yeah.
And so navigating that, and then also navigating finding my own path, and so that's why I do the coaching, the self-development coaching, relational coaching, et cetera, et cetera.
And you started something recently.
I did.
I saw it. I heard you had your first ever service, had 400 people or so there, which is extraordinary, actually.
Yeah, to God be the glory. Yeah, we recently started this movement called Limitless Nights, and it is a movement that is taking our city by storm. And so we're having another event on the 28th of this month. But Limitless Nights is simply, at the age of 7, I was labeled as ADD, ADHD, and dyslexic. And because I spent more time in the hallways than in the classroom. I couldn't read until I was 23 years old. I sat in the back of the church, and one day my father said, you need to learn to rip the label off. A label is just a lie that limits you from your God-given potential. And from there, I took hold of those words and I ran with it. And I just wanted to create a safe space for unsaved folk and saved folk to come in and take off their own labels that have been placed and put on them by people, places, and spaces. So that's what Limitless Nights is about.
That's beautiful. I may be at the next one because I'm in the area.
Yes.
So
I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
We're talking about relationship.
Yeah.
And this episode actually is going to be dealing with marriage. Your marriage. How long have you been married?
8 years in May.
Okay, 8 years. So you know the journey,
Yeah.
and it's it's great and interesting in this particular season.
Yeah.
So I really wanted to pick your brains, and I'll add in as well.
Yeah, of course.
So, but marriage in this day and age, we're in 2025, February 2025, and things have changed. The world has evolved.
Yeah.
From your parents, I suspect both of your parents, I'm
Right.
sure their marriage looks very different. I was raised in a single parented house, so I never got to see what marriage looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I had to experience it, but you've seen what it looks like from various angles and generations. So let me ask this question. What do you believe some of the ingredients is and some of the components that are important to have a healthy marriage in 2025?
In 2025, I think what makes a strong, healthy marriage, at least from my perspective, is a commitment to communicate in a healthy way.
Okay.
Communication is key. Keeping Christ at the center. But I really would suggest that if Christ is not at the center, then communication is going to always stray. And so I've noticed in my marriage that our communication style has changed.
Okay.
Even in the short, almost going on 8 years. When we first got married, I was 27, still growing, still learning, and I'm still growing, still learning now. But one of the things that I had to learn was to cultivate an active listening ear. So that's very different from just listening to respond. But I'm listening to hear my partner's heart. And so communication, keeping Christ at the center of the marriage, to me, those are the pillars, at least the two pillars. And then being financially solvent, being, et cetera, et cetera. But I would say communication and keeping Christ at the center of a marriage is extremely important.
So you would say those are the dominant foundations for having an effective marriage in this day and age. What about people who don't have Christ? They're not Christians. They don't believe.
Yeah.
What do you feel that the components would be in terms of them having a healthy marriage? Now, we do know having Christ in our marriage and being saved is very, very important.
Right.
But what would you say if I was to ask what other components are necessary?
Are you committed to the journey?
Okay.
No, not just in words, but in deed. Are you really going to be committed to this journey? Because marriage it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so if you know anything about running, you know that a great marathon runner practices pace. So you play like you practice. And a lot of people in marriage are not playing right because they're not practicing right. You understand what I'm saying? So
Sure.
what I'm really suggesting is a marathon runner knows its pace, knows at this part of the race, I need to be at this point. So in other words, there's a framework within the marriage of communication. Within the marriage, there needs to be a framework for communication. You need to know.
That.
You need to know when is a good time to talk about my issue. It's probably most likely not going to be right after I got off from work. We're not going to talk about the the argument we had 3 days ago, right after I got in the house from a long day of work. Like, learning the pace.
Sure.
That's a style of communication. So creating those frameworks within your marriage is going to be key and foundation for you to have not just a surviving marriage, but a thriving marriage.
Sure.
You see what I'm saying? So whether you're saved or unsaved, communication is a pillar. It has to be, yeah, because you're going to talk about finance, you're going to talk about sex, you're going to talk about love, you're going to talk about the kids, you're going to talk about, do we want kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So if you don't know how to properly communicate with your spouses, it's going to be an uphill journey.
Here's an interesting question. Your father, Bishop Brown, they're of the generation above. So they got more wisdom than we do. Josh. However, there was a greater definition in my observation. Again, you've seen this at first hand. There was a greater definition as it relates to male and female. And so the male was the head of the home. And he had the final say. Now, it didn't mean that their wives were irrelevant or had no value. But they, were the ones that would make the final decision after discussions and etc. In this generation, we have, women have evolved and developed, which I think there's value in that. But we also have to have balance. So in this generation where you've got male and female, and it's almost assumed at certain levels that they're on equal footings, what happens in a marriage when they don't agree? Because before, your dad would say, well, look, the final buck stops. We've had 5 discussions and we can't agree.
This is what I said.
This is what I say. Okay, so it stops.
Put my foot down.
Yeah, executive order. Now we've got a situation where we've got, 2 people that have equal share in this season. Now, I'm not saying that's the way it should be. I'm saying that's the way it actually is. Because from my angle, the Bible's quite clear on what the tiers are. The man is the head, then you have the wife, you have the children as well. It doesn't mean that the wife is under you. She's beside you. However, responsibility comes with authority. What happens now in the generation, because we have to be real. We can simply say, okay, the man is head of the house, that's it. But is that a reality in marriage today, particularly in the younger type marriages? So how do you settle issues when they don't agree if they are assumed to have equal influence and authority?
Yeah, I think everybody has value. And so man has the value as the head of the house. The woman has value as she is the helpmate. But in this culture, 2025, if we're talking about, if you think your value is about how much money you bring to the marriage, then you've already lost. You're already doing yourself a disservice. And so if that's what we're talking about, as far as what do I bring to the table? Like, that's the big question. What do you bring to the table? That's what women are asking. What do you bring to the table? I'm bringing my protection. I'm bringing my resources. I'm bringing my experiences. And if she's bringing the same thing, this is what I would want to ask.
In some scenarios, she's bringing more.
More money, more influence, more
money, potentially.
Yeah.
It depends. A female ran for president the other day.
I mean, she was literally the vice president.
It was like vice
Harris
president.
was the vice president.
So now you're in a home now in this season.
Yeah.
And the female has influence and has potentially money, maybe in some occasions more than her husband. what happens when there's a disagreement?
It depends on what kind of marriage you want. Like, let's call a spade a spade. Like, what kind of marriage? What kind of marriage do you want? Do you want a marriage that is fulfilling, or do you want a marriage that is keeping score?
Sure.
The biblical model teaches us that she is the helpmate. That doesn't mean she's subservient. Actually, when I read that text, wives, submit to your husbands as Christ has submitted himself to the church. Right? When I read that and when I listen to that, I think about a woman should not submit herself to any man, any husband that doesn't have a vision of provision. That doesn't necessarily mean money. That means if you can't provide it financially, you should be able to provide it spiritually,
emotionally,
relationally. Like if the conversation is always going to be around resources and how much money you make, and I have say so in what we do with our money, you should, because you're not under me. You're helping serve the vision that God has given me. So if we're trying to figure out the biblical model for marriage, you need to have a vision. And if you want a godly woman, or if you want to be a godly woman, sis, you need to find a man that has a vision that you can connect to. What does that mean? It literally means if his vision is only big enough for himself, it's not a vision that is big enough for you. True. You can't get in it. It's not big enough for you. So I guess my thought about it is, it's tough.
But I like the point you're making.
It's tough.
The reason I like the point you're making about having that vision, if you don't have the resources yet, and I think we should use that word yet, because if you have vision, eventually it will come to pass with the help of God.
Absolutely.
Even if she is making more than you. I had a situation in the UK, in the church I was in, where I'm pastoring, that there was a female making considerably more money than the male. But he did have a vision. And she took some of those resources and helped him with the vision, real estate. And he was able to really build a portfolio and superseded the income of his wife.
Can I tell you something? That was my story.
Really?
That was my story.
Wow.
When I met Bree, my wife, she was making more money than me.
Wow. Doing what?
She was in sales.
Wow.
Sales and in marketing. She was making way more money than me.
Wow.
And so now when we got married, she was still making more money than me when we got married.
Right.
But it was something in me that saw my wife working and connecting the dots that made me say to myself, like, I got to do something.
Right.
But without the help of my wife, the vision that God gave me would have never come to fruition. So everything I'm doing now is a byproduct of my wife's partnership.
That's powerful. You know why it's powerful? It's powerful from two aspects.
Yeah.
One, your wife was able to help and say, no, this is mine. You do it yourself. That was partnership.
Yeah.
But two, you had the humility of what many males don't have, which is, I'm going to marry someone who's got making more than me and still making more within marriage. That would give some men sleepless nights. I don't know. Yes. I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah.
But that's not necessarily a virtue. Yeah. I think what you did is a greater virtue than because that's good.
Yeah. Like I for me, and maybe it's because of what I've seen in my house, I saw my father as the provider.
Right.
I saw, and I'm now seeing in my wife's home, he was the provider as well. Her father was the provider.
Oh yeah, big
And
time.
so, right. So there is that, I guess, pressure
to reproduce.
Because you don't just marry the person, you marry the person's history. And if you are going to go an unconventional way, whatever you're going to do, bro, man of God, I'm with you. But just know you're marrying history, whether it's good history or bad history. So that means you're fighting good history because you got to be better than the good history, or you're fighting bad history and you got to be better than the bad history. For me, she came from a history of being provided for.
Wow.
So I could not provide. I could not come home and not pay the bills. I could not pay for her car. I had to do those things because that's what she came from. And I think if more men looked at themselves in the mirror, I have this thought. I think the problem with a lot of men is that we look out the window instead of the mirror. When we look out the window, you see what everybody else is doing. But when you look at the mirror, you have to have a conversation with yourself. I think more men need to have a conversation with themselves about what is the quality of life that I want to have, and am I willing to do that kind of work so that when I find that woman or when I'm in the marriage, because you don't have to do that before you get a marriage, you can do that while you're in the marriage. When I'm in the marriage, that I can help her become the helpmate that she actually wants to be.
See, I got a question. That's good. I got a question.
That helpmate that she wants to be.
Yeah.
Not that you want her to be. Because if you provide for her in a way and create a safe space for her in a way, she's going to flourish in the garden that you put her in, Adam.
Absolutely. But I want to ask you, and also it takes a level of humility as well.
Yeah.
And also a level of virtue, I believe, from your wife to say, I'm going to be patient and then watch you grow.
Right.
Because some females would be, they would use that as a, as a way to sort of dominate rather than to say, let me pour into. But here's what's interesting. Your father-in-law, being real close. I think I met him through Bishop and Pastor Deborah Morton.
Okay.
So he's real close with them, big time. Mm-hmm. How did he feel, or did he know about you marrying his daughter and she was earning more than you, or was it not an issue? Obviously, at that time, I
don't think he knew.
Okay.
But I think he saw potential.
That's good.
Right? And so he could see what it could be. So he knew that I was a person of high character and I came from good stock.
And aspiration.
Right. So it wasn't a matter of if, it was really a matter of when for me.
Sure.
So that's what I would probably say, that he didn't know, but
he knew the trajectory.
He knew the trajectory.
Yeah.
And he's wise. He's wise. He knew. Yeah.
Okay, so that's good.
Yeah.
And I like that. That's fantastic. Okay, we've got another aspect we want to really talk about. And I think sometimes this is skated over when this subject comes up about romance in marriage and keeping it alive. You just kind of get to church and people skate over it. People are watching. And how is it, again, myself as well, and I'll put in here, but in terms of being married, when you're dating, and I met my wife when I was 18, and
what?
Yeah, real young. Got married at 20, and
wow.
Basically, how do you keep romance alive? Because when you're dating on those at that stage, you're putting your best foot forward, and you're doing all that you need to in terms of keeping it alive. How do you keep it alive at this stage of marriage, keeping things, romantic, 'cause that aspect is very, very important.
Yeah.
Keeping the eros love going,
Mm-hmm.
and the bedroom and
Mm-hmm.
all that good stuff. So how does that work? How do you keep that going and keep that aspect alive? So you're not just married to your wife, you're still almost dating as well. You're keeping that angle going.
Yeah, I would preface it by saying, wise man once said to me one time, on the wedding day, most men think that that's the finish line. But women on the wedding day, that's the starting line.
That's a wise man.
Right? And so men think on the wedding day, I did it. The work is done.
Right.
Women think the work can finally begin.
Sure.
So I would say for us, for me and my marriage, we set dates. We schedule dates. We schedule dating times. We're gonna go out to eat, then we're gonna do something adventurous, then we're gonna do stuff that we like to do. And then I'm gonna do something that I might not like to do, that she likes to do. I think it's a matter of, in the whole, what is it? The love languages. They say you got to fill your partner's love, your partner's tank.
Yeah.
And so for my wife, I know her love language, and love languages change. Like the wife that she was at 27 is not the wife she is now. So what she used to like at 27 is not what she likes now. So if I'm still trying to pursue the dating version of my wife, I'm going to lose the woman that she's becoming and evolving into.
Because you've not interpreted where she is at this moment.
Right. And I think so many times men still want the wife to be the dating, the girl that she was
back
then. And it's like...
But if we're moving on, I believe everyone should be excelling and advancing.
Right.
If you're moving forward, it shouldn't be the same.
It shouldn't, but
some people don't.
Common sense isn't so common.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm saying when you dated her, she was the girlfriend. Now she's the wife. Then she became the mother.
And that's another dynamic.
And so how do you date the mother, and how do you create a safe space for her that she can still be attractive to you, right? Because if she's too tired to get in the bedroom because you didn't do the things outside the bedroom, you ain't gonna get to the bedroom.
Right.
So maybe sometimes. So for me, it's like, do the dishes, pick up the kids on time, give her a space where she feels like her world is relieved. Because if she's thinking about the kids and she's thinking about cleaning up the house, she's not thinking about you.
Yeah, that's true.
And so that's one of the other things. And then the other thing that I do, the final thing that I do, if I know, just me personally, I'm being real with you. If I know I want to be intimate with my wife, I cannot wait until an hour before I want to be intimate to start trying to be a smooth cat, a playboy. I got to start pursuing her that week, that morning of. And so you get in, what I've discovered in my marriage, you get in what you get out what you put in. And so I put in a lot of gifts, it's a lot of gift giving, a lot of vacations, it's a lot of pursuing. If you don't pursue, you don't conquer.
Sure. Do you get gifts back?
I'm not big in the gifts. That's not my thing. I like to give
receiving.
gifts.
Okay,
Yeah. I'm
the same.
I'm not big.
I'm a hard person to buy.
Yeah, I'm extremely like. Don't get me nothing. Please.
Me too. I'm the same.
You're gonna be disappointed. You're gonna be. Oh,
like, okay.
I love you so much. Oh my goodness. Where's the receipt?
Exactly.
Taking it back.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm not big on the gift receiving, but I'm big on words of affirmation.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's my thing. So
yeah.
If that's
acts
a
of
gift,
service, you'd be
yeah, but really words of affirmation.
So you would say a spouse needs to know their spouse's love language.
Yeah.
in order to know which buttons to press, because you may press the wrong ones if buying you a gift or me a gift
Right.
might not necessarily do as much.
Right.
I tell you what I do like though.
Yeah.
They say it's the thought that counts,
Mm-hmm.
and when I do receive a gift,
Mm-hmm.
even though I'm hard to buy gifts for, the effort and the intention means everything to me. Not even the cost of the gift. Okay.
You say for real.
Yeah, I'm like,
you say
that you went out your way and you thought,
yeah, you're nice. You're
I
nice
like
guy.
this.
Yeah, yeah.
But
I'm
the actual gift itself, that's almost secondary.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
See what I mean?
I get
To
what
me,
you're
it's
saying.
all about intention.
Yeah, the intentionality behind.
Yeah, so
you went out. Yeah.
grabs me.
Yeah.
But the gift is like, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. You were thinking about me. Yeah. Yeah.
So those are the things. So learning your spouse's love language, really important.
Yeah.
And
dates, going out,
date regular.
You
going on vacations.
Going on vacations. This is a rule of thumb that I do. If I know I got a date with her, and don't always do Friday night, switch it up. Maybe do a Tuesday night. Maybe do a Sunday night. Then you don't have to do Friday night, because guess what? Friday night, Saturday night is jam packed. Everybody's out. Go on the night where a lot of people aren't out.
Yeah.
And then plan the whole date so she doesn't have to think about it.
Wow.
That's a secret for the fellas.
Wow.
Like, plan the whole night. Like, now, if you can afford it, get a black car service so neither of you have to drive.
Who pays when you go out?
I'm paying. My wife doesn't pay anything.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah, my wife doesn't pay. That's just my thing. Like,
right.
I'm big on that. Like,
okay.
Yeah, I'm big on.
See, so you got that from the bishop, see?
Yeah, yeah. She's attempted to pay. That's nice. So you don't have to do that. Or the other thing that I do now, because she likes to try to pay now, it's like, when we get our seat, I'll just give my card to the waiter. It's already handled.
It's already done.
You don't have to. Don't worry about it. You with me tonight? No kids. You're taken care of. Yeah. Just try to make her feel special. So that's what I do. And we weren't always like this. I can be very transparent. We grew to this. When we got married, we were young, and so we just thought like we didn't have to plan things. It's just gonna naturally happen. Now we got kids, we gotta plan sex. We got, like, that sounds corny, but it's if you want to be happy, we gotta plan sex. We gotta plan dates. We gotta plan counseling, not just reactive counseling, but proactive.
Oh, so you do therapy?
Because that helps the intimacy. Because the more you know about her in her emotional state, the more you can connect with her.
How often do you do therapy?
We're gonna do probably once a quarter.
Okay. I think that's
give or take once a quarter.
Yeah. So you're vaccinating rather than medicated.
Hello.
Mm-hmm.
You said it.
Yeah. That's wise.
Yeah.
That's
you have
really
to.
Good. Yeah. Okay, so the divorce rate is big. Okay, in and out of the church.
Mm-hmm.
So why do you think, or in your estimation, why do you think divorce is such a major issue, particularly in couples, I would say from around 55 and below, from what the stats say?
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that is?
Most recently, we've all seen the fires in California. The fires in California have literally devastated over 13,000 properties. But there have been noted that there have been about 15 homes that have survived. Now, we know about the fires because the fires have spread because the embers and because the wind. It's the small things. And so the fire connects to the houses and just rages crazy amounts of destruction. The 15 houses that have stood in the marriages, the 15 houses that have stood in California have been able to stand because their material was different.
Right.
They weren't wood. They were stone. And then there was a specific house that the foundation went into the bedrock. I bring that up to say, I think marriages are collapsing and divorces at an all-time sky-high rocket rate is because it's the small foxes in marriages, the small embers that are destroying it. So the little things that you do in your marriage, like you didn't take out the trash when you're supposed to take out the trash. you didn't pick up the kids on time. And over time, the offense just keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. And by the time you look up, you have a forest fire of a marriage that you can't put out. But I think when you put Christ at the center, and he is the firm foundation, and you keep him in your marriage, not just in thought, but in action and deed. So me and my wife, we pray together. We fast together. We do things spiritually together that keeps us together. I think marriages right now, divorce is crazy because people, social media, they want something else. People don't have any stick-to-itiveness anymore. And so loyalty is at an all-time low. People just want what they see on the screen. So if you get every day, you're looking at a buffet of many different kinds of women, and then you come home and you seeing the highlights, and then you come home and it feels like a nightmare. You're like, I can get out of this. I can go to somebody else. I can be with somebody else. I think
that's good. And I would add to that. Because notice I was talking about the age brackets, and it gets worse as you get younger. And I actually, what you said about the materials of those houses in California, I think is a good analogy, because I believe that the values, and I think that the order of marriage is very important.
Right.
We spoke about therapy. I think premarital therapy is also vital. The reason I say that, what role does each person play? Because I think what happens is one person goes in believing they'll play this role, and the other person goes in playing that they'll fill this role.
Right.
Imagine we've got a movie set and everybody's playing the same character. Right. Rather than playing different characters and knowing this is the character that I want to play. And so because in society things have changed so much, what role do you play? And that has to be discussed before, not after. Because if you try and discuss it after, then you can get yourselves into issues. So everybody needs to know where they fall, where they lay, and there needs to be defined roles. And people have to become comfortable at the roles that they play. So I think that that's a vital component.
Can I ask you a question?
Go ahead.
If we're going to use the analogy of marriage or the movie, right, in that the roles are important, my question is, and this is just my question, what happens when the roles change? Sickness comes, the role might change. So you get laid off, the role might change. So how are we defining roles, number one? And then how flexible are the roles, if they are at all?
I think though you may change, going back to what you was asking in terms of the roles, firstly, are the roles God-given? What does the Bible say?
Got you.
Okay, so let's follow that pattern.
Yeah.
So for an example, the Bible says that the man is the head of the home.
Yeah.
And the wife is a helpmeet or a support.
Right.
Now, it didn't give any contingency for changes. Right. Where the man says, well, you know what, I've got laid off, so, I don't need to have vision, or I don't need to pursue. So the roles are the roles, and there will be different scenarios, but the roles are the roles. The president is still the president. Okay? And it's the position. This is another thing people, I don't think, understand. It's the position, not the person.
Mm.
And I think sometimes we get caught up with persons
Mm.
rather than positions,
Mm.
if that makes sense. And as much as we may have different presidents changing, the point is we can debate on who's more effective or who isn't. But once they're in that position, they're in that position. Because the position is what carries the power. The position is given by God. Now, what I'm saying is you need to know where you stand, and everybody needs to know what their role is, or else you get chaos.
Mm-hmm.
So for an example, CLCC, we know that the pastor is Pastor Paul B. Mitchell.
Yes.
If there are two other people who are thinking they may assume in that role, you're going to get confusion.
Right.
Or if the pastor feels like, okay, well, I'm going to be like a congregant, that's confusion.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's a lot of confusion because society has changed. And because of that change, that then sort of bleeds into the home.
Right.
And then you get chaos.
Okay.
Because nobody's playing the defined role. So the older generation knew their roles, but the younger generations, those roles are not there. And then we have other angles like governments have made divorce much more easy.
It's still expensive. It's still $250.
No, easy to do.
Oh yeah, it's right. Yeah.
Now you can do.
In my state, you got to be separated for a year. You got to be separated for a year, and then you got to go through other processes. So it's kind of long, but I get what you're saying.
But if you go back, if I was doing research, if you go back to the I think it's from the 60s, before, okay, it was very, very difficult to divorce.
Oh,
actually,
wow.
A female, I don't know how fair this is, couldn't divorce.
Right. Yeah.
So the point was to actually do it.
Yeah.
Would become very, very, the obstacle to do it would be very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So I think that, society has changed so much, and I believe that's bled into the church. We've lost some of our values. Our positions are now blurred, and where we, things lay now is very, very, very difficult.
Yeah.
And it can even happen with the children, because now, imagine a child coming and saying, oh, I want to be a female, saying I want to be a male, or a male saying I want to be a female, and my parents don't have a say. This is absolute and total chaos.
Yeah.
And so I think some of those things, but if we go back to the Bible and back to, like you said at the beginning, what the Bible says, then we're not going to be caught up by the world system. Yeah. We're going to still stay in tune with God's system. Right. And I think that we've perhaps maybe come away from the Bible a little bit. Yeah. And we've been caught up in the system of the world. Yeah. So I believe that's the reason. So if we go back to the Bible, I think it's going to make a fundamental change.
Yeah. Paul says in Romans 12:2, be not conformed to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. That word in the Greek meant metanoma. It meant to continually renew your mind every single time you think about an old pattern of existence.
Wow.
So recalibrate yourself to get out of the culture and get in kingdom.
Wow.
So get out of culture relevance and getting in kingdom providence.
So we're in the world, but not of the world.
Right. In it, not of it.
It's true.
Salt, light, chosen, peculiar. Don't try to fit in to become relevant.
Wow.
Authenticity matters, but if your authenticity is not connected to Christ, your marriage will fail. And so it doesn't matter what the culture is saying. His ways are not our ways. His thoughts are not our thoughts. So in other words, if he said it in his word, we got to stick to that. Doesn't matter. I mean, doesn't matter how successful you are. Doesn't matter. None of that stuff matters. Yeah. Because it doesn't produce anything.
Yeah. And I think there's a spiritual attack on marriage. And I think some of it is also designed as well. I was actually doing a research on wealth. And in my research on wealth, I was looking at different continents in terms of wealth. And I noticed that the black family had the least amount of wealth on most continents, particularly in the Western society. And then I looked at income, and income wasn't that bad. So the income was slightly below, but wealth was a massive gulf. And I thought, well, why is this gulf? And I looked at different cultures, and the wealth gulf was huge. Well, the long and short of it is that the reason the wealth gulf is so big is because we marry less and keep marriages less. And basically wealth is about combining. You know, great Jews, all these cultures, they combine generation after generation after generation. And that's why they've got this wealth. You know, most of the great companies we speak about today, Colgate, Mercedes, whatever, they were family-run businesses. So that's really interesting. Man, it's been so good being with you, and it's been a real insightful. Listen, this has been a very, very powerful episode 1, where we've been speaking about marriage and the aspects of it. I really want you to stay connected, want you to visit on Sunday. Keep coming back as well for more nuggets of Change Your Life podcast. And we certainly thank God for your life. Stay blessed and favored of God. Make sure you subscribe and make sure you stay a part of what we're doing. Join this channel and continue to be blessed and favored of God. We'll see you next week. God bless you.
It is our desire to keep you posted on what's happening here at Changing Lives Christian Center. So please pull out your smart devices so you can take notes and save dates. Your 2024 year-end statements are now available via email. Statements will be issued from January 26th to March 30th. Email your request to infodesk@clccministries.com or sign up at the info desk in the lobby. Do you need prayer? It doesn't matter for what. CLCC is here to stand in prayer with you and for you. Let's take it to the Lord, for He cares about all of the needs you have. God has commanded us to always pray and not faint. His word declares that when we pray, believing, that He will always answer. So join CLCC's prayer leaders Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 7:30 a.m. That's right, 30 minutes for prayer and encouragement to start your day. We look forward to you calling into our conference prayer line, 646-769-9900. Access code 82551. Remember, come and dial believing. The Master awaits your prayer request. Join CLCC in remembrance of current world events.